strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to the Mick Bazzuly Show. Brought to you by Insurance Doctors and RP Summit, putting money in business pockets for 20 years. Visit rpsummit.com. Now, here's Mick.
9:04 on a Mongoloid Monday. As Russia continues. Where's the picture? Oh, there I am up there. Okay, 9:04. Hey, let's get back. It looks like a lot of stuff going around, especially watching the news. You can get a nosebleed. I mean, this weekend, and now with the gremlin from the Kremlin increasing his nuclear readiness. What does that mean exactly? What does that mean, his nuclear readiness? Does this monkey not realize that we lead the league in atomic and hydrogen bombs, and we're the only country in the world that dropped it twice? Ask the Japanese what they think. Looks like the Russians are getting their Stalingrad. These guys won't give up. The Ukrainians, people don't realize this with the Ukrainians. They go back to when time began. They're not a country to be taken lightly. They're people. They stopped the Mongoloid herds. They stopped the Crusades. It was them and the Polacks that actually put an end to the Crusades. These people are resilient. They love their land. And you got to love them and just the way they're handling themselves in this terrible crisis. And it is a crisis of uncharted magnitude. I mean, to watch Russia and Putin, who's got I don't know who's more brain damaged. Do we have the one that's completely out of his mind, or does he belong to the Russians? Our guy's peaceful, at least on the outside he is. Yes, he takes a few dollars in graft. He's got a son who's got a terrible drug problem. And who knows about his wife? He's always been a little bit off the wall anyway, but who's better off? Are we better off with this guy who doesn't even know what day it is? Or will we be better off with the gremlin from the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, who suffers probably from the worst little man complex that I've ever seen? I mean, what is the guy, 5'3"? Stalin was only 5'2". I'll show you what the Russians are like. Stalin. See, the Ukrainians have always been a pain in the ass to the Russians. They're not really Russians. Don't ever think for a minute that Ukrainians are Russians. In fact, you'd probably get your nose punched if you told one of them that. We are Ukrainians. We're not Russians. Total different people. Different culture. I mean, just completely different in every aspect of the way. They became part of Russia during the purge of 1917, where the Tsar was executed and Lenin took over. And then from there, Stalin, after Lenin passed. Do you know that Stalin actually starved the Ukrainian people back in the 1930s to where millions died of starvation? He wanted to bring them to their knees and humble them. So he held back all food sources, burned their wheat fields, the big producer of wheat, one of the biggest, and basically starved them to death. Now, this is a regime, and believe me, Putin is Stalin, only he dresses better. The fact of the matter is he came from that school. You got to remember, he's a baby boomer. He's 70 years old, grew up in the height of Stalin, then Khrushchev. He was a KGB agent. He's godless. He doesn't believe in anything. He's Vladimir Putin. I mean, we know who he is. He's been he wants to see the old Soviet Union back. And he's working at it. He wants to eventually take back the satellite countries. Now he's got a problem because they're part of NATO. Now, will NATO fight? There's the $64,000 question. Will they fight? I don't know. I'd like to think that people would fight as hard as the Ukrainians. There's a fine example. Would we fight? This country. We don't go back thousands of years. We got more people who are new to this country in the last 10, 20 years. I don't think they have their loyalty here yet, if they ever will. It takes generations. Generations. And we don't have that here. And then there's the madness out there where they say, well, even if Putin gives the order to go ahead and attack, his generals might not follow through. Want to take a chance on that? They're staunch communists. Those generals, what do you think? They just, because the government isn't a communist government, they just forgot their morals. They forgot who they are. Now, they'll follow the order to the letter. Will our guys follow it? Our deterrent is not the missile bases and the silos out in Kansas. It's those submarines that are sitting out there on the bottom of the ocean that nobody knows where they are. Each one of those can take out 30, 40, 50 cities. And there are a lot of subs out there. They sit under the ice over in the North Pole. And they'll fire their missiles 5, 6 months after. But they're coming. Will our guys follow them? If they attack us, will we attack them? You see, here's the problem you have. And there's a plan, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, that in case of a war, everybody hits everybody else. India has many, many, many nuclear bombs, and they have the way to carry it there. And they've been fighting with China constantly. They're fighting over Kashmir. And I'm talking about, it's not a war of words. It's an actual fight. Soldiers die over this portion of India called Kashmir. And the Chinese are claiming it, and the Indians are claiming it. Meanwhile, everybody's getting killed over there because nobody really controls it. It goes back and forth, and it has for decades. India has a top-flight air force. They have our planes. Their pilots are all trained by the Americans, and they're excellent pilots, and they have a lot of planes, as does Poland. But the nuclear weapons are controlled by the United States, Russia, China, North Korea, Israel, France, and England. I believe there's one or two others, Australia maybe. I don't recall. I know Japan don't have it. They were the recipient of two. But the Japanese have rebuilt their army and their navy. At our request, they're back in the box again. And they're over by Taiwan. They're watching out to see if there's any invasion. And I don't believe the Chinese would invade Taiwan that way. First of all, there are 35 million Taiwanese. They have a terrific army and air force. They have a solid navy. They also have the natural barrier of the North China Sea. So you need tens of thousands of landing craft. It would have to be a bigger invasion than Normandy. And there was no other invasion in the world like Normandy. They don't have that. They also don't have 30 or 90 miles across like we did at Normandy. It's a lot further, a lot of distance to travel. You can't shield it. They'll see you coming with radar. There'll be a sitting duck out there. Paratroopers, you couldn't get enough of them. And you got to remember, Taiwan now, you're about 5 generations into freedom. People who were born there, let's see, 1947 or 48, and they were there before then, and they've always been a democracy. So outside when Madam Chiang and Chiang Kai-shek left, but they know what it's like to be free. They don't want to give that up. Now, China uses a word called reunification. There is no reunification. Nobody wants to go. They're reunified providing we run you. That's not going to happen. They're not going to go along with that. So I don't know what's going to happen over there, but I do know the world is watching very carefully to see what happens. Now, they're supposed to have peace talks. Zelensky, and now there's one tough president for you. When Biden offered him, he offered to take Zelensky and his family out of Ukraine, and he told the president, I don't need a ride. I need ammunition and weapons. That's a tough president. He said he's there, his family's there. They're the number one guys to take out. Now the peace talks are going on, which I don't think will happen. And it's depicted in the stock market today. It's going to open. It's going to probably fall about 500 to 700 points in the first minute. The futures are down. The world economy took a beating last night. The Nikkei, even the Chinese lost 3-4% of their value. The ruble up to 40% last night. So if you were a Russian and you went to bed and you had $100,000 in rubles, you woke up and they were worth 60. Nobody wants the ruble anyway. Nobody ever wanted the ruble. They want U.S. dollars or British pounds or Euro dollars. That's the type of society it is. You know, I believe it was John McCain who said that Russia's nothing but a big, dirty gas station. Because really, they don't produce anything. All they do is pump fuel. And what does our pineapple president do? He shuts down the Keystone Pipeline. Did you see gas prices? They're going to go even higher. They're going to go higher, and Europe is going to suffer. And Europe has suffered because now they're hostage to the Russians. We shut the pipeline down. We were completely energy independent. President Trump, we didn't import one drop of fuel, not one. And now we're dependent on 500 million barrels of fuel every quarter. 500 million barrels. You know how many barrels that is? Oil broke $100 a barrel today, by the way. It's $104.35 right now. So you're going to see $4 or $5 prices here in Florida. They're already seeing well over that in California, New York, New Jersey. And it's only going to go higher. And the sad part is if you own a home, your heating oil, I mean, those are 500-gallon, 250, some of them 750,000-gallon gas tanks, fuel tanks. And that oil is delivered, and it's about $5.50 a gallon now. So every time you order oil, and you'll probably have to do it at least twice every winter, do the math. That's $5,000-$6,000 out of an average family's pocket in New York or Jersey or any of the cold states. You know, how are they going to sustain that? Between that, gas prices, food shortages. I went in Publix the other day. I couldn't believe what I was saying. I mean, you know, cream cheese. There was no cream cheese. Can't find eggs. All right? You go into frozen food, it's just, it's abominable what's happening. And meanwhile, he goes and he disappears up in Delaware for the weekend. He's got the State of the Union address tomorrow, a month late, at least. It's usually in January. They probably wanted everything to settle down, and now, what can you say? I mean, you know, has he done a great job? He's done a horrible job. Horrible job. Simply horrible. You know, you look around and you say to yourself, how do we get ourselves into this? Well, it started with the election. I'm not completely convinced he won that election. In fact, listen, I know damn well he didn't. Where'd all those voters come from? 20 million more people voted in that election than in the last election, and the one before that, and the one before that. Where did they come from? One district, 28,000 votes, not one for Donald Trump, not one. Even if you didn't like him, not one. That doesn't happen. The laws of probability are against you. Think about it. And yet we let it go. Because nobody wants to tear down what was built over 250 years. You know, even in the Constitution, it says that eventually it'll be everybody's responsibility to tear it all down and start all over again. I guess they knew that, you know, things would happen. And boy, are they happening, and they're happening at a rapid rate. It's so much that you got to just up your blood pressure medication, take a Xanax at night if you want to, shot of vodka, glass of wine, and just ride it out. Because we're not going to be able to change anything. Right now, the eyes of everybody's on the gremlin in the Kremlin. And he is a gremlin. He's the worst nightmare to come along since Adolf Hitler. We're going to go to a break. I'll be back in a minute. I'm the Mixler. Don't go away. We'll pick this up right then.
Attention, doctors, car lots. I don't care what type of business you're in. Let's face it, you all need traffic. And nobody drives traffic. And I'm talking about traffic that brings you dollars than RP Summit and rpsummit.com. Yep, they're here now in South Florida. They've taken over the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. Everybody knows who RP Summit is because RP Summit drives you traffic. Let's face it, if you give me $1 on a Monday and I give you back $4 on a Wednesday, the only thing you should be thinking about is giving me more dollars. Well, that's what RP Summit does. They are the best in the business at driving real traffic to your website or to your business. Because let's face it, it's all about getting bodies, getting people to find you. What good is having a website if nobody knows where you are? Let's face it. I mean, what are they just going to pull it out of the air? Of course not. Well, RP Summit's been driving people to businesses now for over 20 years and successful. And the fact is, once you hire them, you're never going to fire them. I suggest you look at rpsummit.com or give them a call for a free consultation at 856-424-7222. That's rpsummit.com. They will drive traffic like you've never seen before. And believe me, once you get them, you'll never get rid of them. You'll say, why didn't I do this before? It's simple. You didn't know about them, but now you do, so there's no excuse. Pick up a phone, 856-424-7222. rpsummit.com, the best in the business.
9:20 on Monday. You're on my show. I'm Mick Bazsuly. You know, girls, you going to get your hair done? I mean, look at my hair. I'm getting a little thin on top again. But, you know, nothing you can do for me except put a dead animal on it, on my head, and I'm not going to go for that. The H Salon over on 33rd Street. Now, everybody knows where 33rd Street is. That's where Fishtails is, where Blue Jean Blue is, Solar Pasta, Candace and a wine bar, 33rd Street Wine Bar. Well, I was there the other night. We had a good time. Okay, Gail Hansen and her beauty salon, the H Salon at 3313 33rd Street, right a couple of doors away from the 33rd Street Wine Bar, directly across the street from Blue Jean Blues. All right, give her a call, okay? There are people over there. They do everything, nails. They do it by appointment. You could walk in, and you'll walk out looking pretty resilient. I got to tell you, some of the women that come out of there, they walk in like Rosie O'Donnell, and they come out, and they look like Cameron Diaz. I don't know how she does it. I mean, she's got the magic touch, the magic fingers, as they say. You know that I heard that movie, Edward Scissorhands, was really written about Gail Hansen. And they changed it later on because, you know, the scissors, the activity. Give her a call at 954-491-4871. 954-491-4871. You'll love the way you look. And believe me, she won't clip you. I mean, she's very, very reasonable. A little frugal, but she's very, very reasonable. Again, 954-491-4871. You know, the news cycles are really terrific. What happened to the Canadian truckers? Where'd they go? Do we not see them on TV anymore? What happened to them? Did Stalin Jr., or better yet, the baby Fidel, lock them all up? Yeah. He threw them all in jail, but they were told no more coverage of this. So we don't hear about that. We don't hear about Hunter Biden. We don't hear about the Durham report, which I heard is explosive, the last I heard. Yet everybody's still walking around grabbing with both hands in Washington, stealing us, robbing us blind. That's the news cycle. And right now, hot is the Ukraine. In another week, we won't even hear about the Ukraine, maybe. Or maybe we won't even be here to hear about the Ukraine. It's going to be one or the other. You see, this is why you can't make bets on a nuclear war. Because if you win, who's going to be around to pay you? I mean, are we that insane that it's all going to end? Because if it's going to end, let's end it. All right? We'll all go ahead and get vaporized, and we'll go off into the next world. It's sad. It's sad. You know, again, this guy, he calls He calls Zelensky a Hitler. He's the Hitler here. Zelensky happens to be Jewish. That's almost as bad as the other knucklehead calling the girl in Parliament in Canada a Nazi. She was Jewish. Don't these people do any homework? Or are they that completely daft and that full of power and rage that they can do whatever the hell they want to do? When are we going to knock them on their ass and say, no, you can't do this anymore? We're taking back what's ours. It's called our lives. It's called our country. It's called our dignity. Grow some balls. Unbelievable. And I hope Putin sends these guys into a meat grinder over in their new Stalingrad, which is called Kiev. These people will fight. Little 78-year-old grandmothers out there with machine guns. I mean, I haven't seen that since South Beach in the 80s. 78 years old. Do you know that they brought portable crematoriums because they're burning their dead. They can't send them back to Russia in coffins like we do here because Yuri ain't coming home no more. What's going to happen when their sons and daughters have realized they're not coming back? These are conscripts, 18, 19-year-old kids that are getting chopped up. 400 people were killed in 2 planes that were shot down alone. 2 paratrooper units, 2 companies, 250 men. Plus the 250, the 2 companies that did jump, none of them hit the ground alive. They happened to jump where there were thousands of Ukrainians with AK-47s, and they picked them off before they hit the ground. They're getting crushed. Now they're using drones, and they're blowing up these columns that a 3-mile-long column coming toward Kiev of tanks and men. Well, there was a 45-mile column in Iraq. Don't you remember the pictures on the road? We decimated them. These were the same tanks.
2 minutes.
These were the same tanks that the Russians are using today. And they're getting taken out one by one. Somebody said in one report they lost over 1,000 tanks. You're welcome. I mean, really, when you come down to it, it's insane. I don't know where we're going to end up. I do know that I hope to see you next Monday, but if I don't, what can I tell you? We'll either be here or we won't. And, we got, what do we have over here? The Air Force Base, the Homestead Air Force Base. We could probably survive the concussion. Don't stare at the flash, they tell you, or you'll go blind. But we might be a little radiated. Well, one thing's certain, Freddie, we could, they say your hair falls out. We're halfway there now, so it don't matter. I got that worry about. You got to look at where you live. I mean, we're flat. You can't put a bomb shelter in here. Chances are you drown. I mean, what do? Escape to the mountains of Georgia? I don't know. He's got his basement, Biden. It's in Delaware, the one he campaigned out of. And he's got one at the White House. Wouldn't it be horrible if he's the only one who survived? I mean, that would be, just the thought of it. I don't know what to say. All I know is we're in trouble. Listen, Freddie, I want to thank you for everything you did here, all the good people of Bazsuly. I want to thank my sponsors, RP Summit, Tom Kozlowski, of course, a terrific guy. He was going to come on today. He's a student of what the Ukrainians are, the type of people, as well as Polacks, because he happens to be Polish, Kozlowski. He's not exactly Italian. But he couldn't come on. He had other obligations today, which I can understand. We were going to have Lynn Baldwin here, too, but her brother got sick, the recording artist. She was going to come on today, and she's had to go to Orlando. But maybe we'll hope to bring her on in a couple of weeks. She's got an interesting story. Stay strong, stay happy, stay vigilant, and keep your head down. I mean, keep an eye on the sun because it might not be the sun you're looking at. This is a scary time. It really is. It's a scary time for a lot of people. And it's hard to find humor, in a nuclear war. I don't think there's anything too funny about that. They take out 50, 60 of our cities. In a way, wouldn't we be better off? It's a horrible thing to say. I mean, really, I don't go there anymore. You know, to me, is the safest place. You can't even live out in
All right,
like
wrap it up.
Kansas because the ground opens up. And that's where those silos are. And you know they're targeted. I'm the Mick Bazzuly. Will be back next week. God give us grace. And until then, sei gesund. Enjoy yourselves.
The